He said getting sick was a choice, that real professionals push through pain, that calling in sick was just another form of weakness. And I believed him until the day my body stopped listening. My name is Ethan Monroe. I gave 9 loyal years to Midstate Industrial Supply. No drama, no excuses, just results. Until one Tuesday morning, when a virus hit me like a truck. I couldn't stand. I couldn't eat. Every 30 minutes, my body reminded me I was human. I called in, left a voicemail, attached a note from my doctor. Dean Halbrook, my supervisor, didn't even open it. He didn't care. He just said, "We need reliable people, and you're not one of them." He fired me. In front of the team, no warning, no thank you, just pack up and go. And the worst part, he smiled while doing it, like it gave him joy. But what Dean didn't know was that I'd been paying attention to his habits, to his obsession with timing, to his perfect routines. He believed order was power, that nothing could shake him, until I sent him lunch. Not a threat, not a confrontation, just a sandwich, before the biggest meeting of his career. He taught me that one moment of weakness can ruin everything, so I gave him one. Perfectly timed, perfectly tailored, perfectly deserved. And if you've ever wished karma had better timing, stick around. Because this isn't a story about sickness. It's about justice, cold, precise, and quiet. Ethan Monroe showed up. That's who he was. That's who his father raised him to be. He wasn't the loudest in the room, didn't care for drama, never stayed late just to be seen. But he showed up, on time, prepared, steady as a steel beam. For 9 years, Ethan worked procurement at Midstate Industrial Supply in Toledo, Ohio. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and let him sleep at night. He knew every vendor on the East Coast by first name, knew which ones delayed invoices and which ones delivered early just to make a point. Clients loved him because Ethan didn't miss, didn't forget, didn't cut corners. He believed in doing things right the first time, even when no one noticed, especially when no one noticed. His father worked 34 years at a steel plant, only missed work once when he had kidney stones and collapsed on the job. The message was clear. Men show up, no excuses. Ethan took that to heart, even when he had the flu, even after a car accident left his shoulder in a sling. He still showed up. The day he met Dean Halbrook, he didn't expect anything special, just another promotion above him, just another boss passing through. But Dean noticed Ethan, and not in a good way, because while Ethan showed up with a quiet consistency, Dean showed up with something else entirely, an obsession with control, an allergy to humility, and a smile that meant trouble. Dean Halbrook didn't yell, he didn't throw tantrums, he didn't curse or slam doors. He smiled, even when he was cutting you down, even when he was documenting your mistakes, even when he was firing someone, he smiled. Dean got his promotion 6 months before Ethan was let go. No announcement party, no internal voting, just a quiet nod from the board and a new nameplate outside the corner office. Rumor was his wife's brother sat on that board, the same brother who once said Dean had executive presence. Whatever that meant, Dean loved rules. Not because they created fairness, but because he got to enforce them. He watched clocks, timed lunch breaks, commented on hallway conversations and the number of times someone used the printer. Dean didn't build teams. He kept score. He wasn't loud. He was exact, calculated. If you made a mistake, he didn't call it out right away. He saved it, held on to it, filed it under future leverage. He didn't care about trust. He cared about control. And he hated being corrected, especially in public, especially by someone like Ethan, quiet, competent, and unimpressed by hierarchy. From the moment Ethan corrected one error in Dean's quarterly report, just one misplaced cost projection, Dean smiled. But it wasn't the kind of smile that forgives. It was the kind that remembers and waits. Before everything unraveled, things were quiet. Not peaceful, just quiet. Ethan kept his head down, handled his accounts, filed his reports. Vendors still called him first. Clients still asked for him by name. And Dean watched. Not openly, not obviously, but always. He walked by Ethan's desk twice every morning. Once before coffee, once after. Never said a word, just watched. He'd hover during team meetings, asking Ethan to clarify something already explained in the slides. He'd forward Ethan's emails to upper management with a line just keeping everyone informed. At first, Ethan thought it was standard micromanagement. New boss, new system, new metrics. But it wasn't metrics Dean was after. It was obedience. Dean wanted eyes, not initiative. He wanted silence, not suggestions. Ethan's performance never dipped. His reviews were clean. No formal warnings. No late arrivals. No missed deadlines. But the tone changed. Coworkers stopped chatting near his desk. Meetings grew shorter, colder. One morning, Ethan found a sticky note on his monitor. Please copy me on all vendor emails moving forward. No thank you, no reason. Just control. Still, Ethan didn't fight it. Didn't push back. He thought maybe Dean's just under pressure. He didn't know it then, but Dean wasn't under pressure. He was preparing something. And Ethan, he was being softened, like meat before the blade. It started with a number. Just one. A cost projection in the Q2 procurement budget. Off by $17,842. Buried in line 12 under freight buffer. Ethan saw it during a team sync. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet flag. After the meeting, he stopped by Dean's office, knocked once, spoke low. Hey, I think there's a decimal shift in the freight line. Might want to double check before sending it to the board. Dean didn't look up from his monitor, just nodded. Noted. That was it. No thanks. No good catch. Just noted. The next day, the updated report was circulated. Corrected. No credit given. No mention of Ethan. But that wasn't the problem. The problem came later that week, when Dean sent a company-wide email reminding staff to review their own numbers more carefully, especially before escalating feedback in executive channels. Ethan wasn't mentioned, but everyone knew. The tone had changed, from watching to marking. Dean's smile grew thinner, his check-ins more frequent, his language colder. You sure you're aligned with the new system? Any blockers on your accounts? I should know about planning any time off. We should factor in. The questions weren't questions. They were warning shots. Ethan answered with calm, polite, professional. But something had shifted. The air was charged, like before a storm. He'd corrected one number, one decimal. But in Dean's world, precision wasn't just expected. It was his territory, and Ethan had stepped on it. It hit on a Tuesday, 3:12 a.m. Ethan shot out of bed, sweating, shaking body, betraying him. By 4:00, he'd thrown up twice. By 6:00, he couldn't stand without blacking out. Stomach virus, brutal, relentless. He couldn't keep down water, let alone sit through a budget call. He called in, left a voicemail, short, clear, respectful. Hey Dean, this is Ethan. Woke up violently sick. Can't hold anything down. Doctor's appointment at 9. We'll update by noon. He texted too. Attached the doctor's note by 11:00. Silence. No reply, no feel better, no thanks for the heads up. Just silence. Wednesday morning he tried again. Called Dean's office, left another message. Still down. Hoping to recover by Thursday. Appreciate your patience. Still nothing. By Thursday, Ethan could finally walk straight. He drove to the office early, pale, weak, but focused. He caught up on everything, invoices, vendor calls, pending contracts. Dean passed by his desk 3 times. Didn't say a word. Not even a glance. At 4:17 p.m., Ethan's phone buzzed. Dean Halbrook, conference room 2. No subject, no details. He walked in. Dean was seated, arms folded. This isn't working out, Dean said, sliding papers across the table. Too many absences, too much unpredictability. We need people we can count on. Ethan didn't argue, didn't explain. He just stared at the word termination and signed his name. The ink wasn't dry, but the damage was. He'd been sick, human, and in Dean's world that was unforgivable. The door was open, on purpose. Dean made sure of it. Conference room 2 faced the bullpen. Everyone could see in, everyone could hear out. As Ethan signed the termination papers, voices outside softened. Mice in a maze, pretending not to notice. Dean leaned back in his chair, folded his arms. It's not personal, he said. It's just policy. Then louder, as if rehearsed. We need reliable people. Ethan paused. Let the words sit, let them echo. He didn't fight, didn't plead. He slid the pen back across the table. Understood, he said. Tone flat, face blank. Dean extended a hand. That smile again thin, rehearsed, smug. Ethan shook it. Felt nothing. No hate, no fear, just stillness. He stood. Walked out slow. Back straight. Steps measured. Every eye in the office tracked him. Some looked down. Some looked guilty. None looked surprised. At his desk, he grabbed the essentials. Mug. Photos. Vendor notebook he built from scratch over 9 years. No goodbyes. No send-off. Just the soft sound of cardboard flaps closing. As he reached the elevator, he glanced back once, just once. Dean stood by his office door, hands in pockets, watching, satisfied, as if he had won something, and maybe he had. Because in that moment, Ethan felt small, reduced, discarded. Not because he was bad at his job, not because he'd failed, but because he'd dared to be human, and Dean had turned that into a flaw. Ethan didn't go home right away. He sat in his truck, in the parking lot, for a long time. The cardboard box sat beside him, silent, light, but it felt heavy. He watched employees filter out, laughing, phones in hand, like nothing had happened, like 9 years could be erased by one stomach bug and a man with a clipboard. His hands trembled, not from anger, from humiliation. It wasn't just the firing, it was how public it had been, how cold, how clinical. He remembered something his father once said, "The worst pain ain't being hurt. It's being made small in front of people who never saw your worth." His dad was a steel man, 34 years, never missed a shift, never asked for favors. Even when he broke 2 ribs falling off a scaffold, he showed up the next day duct tape over his side. Ethan used to think that was strength. Now, he wasn't so sure. Maybe strength wasn't about showing up broken. Maybe it was about knowing when to break something back. He looked down at his hands. Hands that used to sign million-dollar contracts. Hands that vendors trusted. Hands that were now empty. Dean had taken his job, his dignity, his voice. But what he hadn't taken was Ethan's memory, his timing, and his silence. Because silence is underestimated until it's weaponized. And Ethan, he wasn't planning a comeback. He was planning a lesson. Dean loved control. That was his brand, his persona. Everything in its place, meetings to the minute, emails color-coded, sandwiches delivered at exactly 11:00 a.m. That was the thing. Every day, same lunch, same order, same deli 2 blocks from the office. Turkey club, no tomato, extra mustard, from Parker's Deli on East Grant. He never brought lunch, never skipped a meal. It was part of his rhythm, his perfection. Ethan remembered that, and remembered something else. Next Tuesday, Midstate was hosting its largest investor presentation in company history. Representatives from Great Lakes Manufacturing, $8 million on the line. Dean had been preparing for months, polishing every line, rehearsing transitions, color matching his PowerPoint slides to the company logo. It had to be flawless. It had to be Dean. But Ethan had learned something during his 3 days sick in bed. Viruses don't care about perfection. Neither does food poisoning. And timing, well, timing decides everything. Ethan didn't want revenge that screamed. He wanted it to whisper. No fire, no threats, no mess. Just one sandwich, just one lunch, at exactly the wrong moment. A mirror held up to a man who thought illness was weakness and timing was power. Ethan smiled the kind of smile Dean would have recognized. Because when someone believes they're untouchable, they stop looking behind them. And Ethan was already 6 steps back and 2 moves ahead. Ethan didn't rush. He planned. Because revenge isn't rage. It's rhythm. Monday morning, he bought a prepaid card cash only. No name, no trail. Then he drove to the south end of town, to a deli no one recommended, where mayo sat unrefrigerated and milk expiration dates were more suggestions than rules. He ordered 1 turkey club, no tomato, extra mustard, just like Dean liked it. Almost. He took it home, opened the wrapper like a surgeon, added 2 things. Mayonnaise that had sat in his warm car for 2 hours, and 3 drops of milk expired by 4 days. No poison, no violence. Just enough to cause chaos, but not enough to cause suspicion. Then he rewrapped it. Tight, clean, untouched. Tuesday, 9:30 a.m. Ethan called Parker's Deli using a soft southern accent. Pretended to be Dean's wife. "This is Laura Halbrook. I'd like to surprise my husband with lunch. His usual turkey club, please. Delivered a mid-state executive floor by 11 sharp." The order went through. No questions, no red flags. At 10:55 a.m., Ethan parked across the street. Watched the delivery guy walk in, bag in hand. Walk out empty. He didn't need to see more, because Ethan knew Dean. Knew he'd eat it at his desk, reviewing bullet points, chasing perfection. He checked the clock. The meeting started at noon. And that sandwich, that was the only thing Dean wouldn't be able to control. Because some viruses come with a bow. 11:00 a.m., right on schedule. The delivery guy stepped out of the building empty-handed. Ethan watched from across the street, calm, composed, invisible. Dean had the sandwich. He'd eat it. He always did. Same time, same desk, same confidence. Inside that office, Dean was probably flipping through notes, fine-tuning his pitch to Great Lakes Manufacturing, adjusting bullet points, wiping imaginary dust off his desk. Meanwhile, the sandwich sat quietly in his gut, getting to work. Ethan didn't move, didn't blink. He sat in his truck, engine off, radio silent, just waiting. At 12:03, he imagined Dean stepping into the conference room, hand extended, smile confident, PowerPoint remote in palm. 12:17, the cramps would start, barely noticeable. 12:29, the first sweat, a bead at the temple. 12:35, that first shift in posture, the internal panic masked by a joke. And then somewhere between slide 6 and slide 9, everything would unravel. The same symptoms Ethan had endured, the same helpless spiral, only this time in front of 25 investors. Ethan wasn't hoping for pain. He was hoping for poetry, because Dean had taught the office that sickness was weakness, that reliability was everything. And now he'd learn what happens when timing turns on you. At 12:45, Ethan turned the key in his ignition, drove away. No expression. He didn't need to see the fallout. He'd already written the ending. 12:52 p.m. Jake, Ethan's old coworker, called. "You are not going to believe what just happened." Ethan leaned back in his seat. Let Jake speak. Dean was in the middle of his pitch, slide 7, I think. Suddenly stopped. Went pale. Started sweating like he ran a marathon. Ethan said nothing. Jake kept going. He mumbled something, tried to keep talking, but his voice cracked. Then he doubled over, like his stomach imploded. Investors shifted in their seats. A few glanced at each other. Then Dean puked. All over the conference table. PowerPoint clicker hit the floor. Gasps. One woman screamed. He tried to run, but didn't make it. Collapsed in the hallway. Security had to carry him out. The presentation never finished. The meeting ended with a stunned silence. No applause, no handshakes. Just dry cleaning bills and 3 canceled follow-ups. Ethan asked one question. Are they rescheduling? Jake chuckled bitter. Not a chance. Great Lakes already pulled their interest. Board's in emergency session. They're looking for a scapegoat. Dean had become the very thing he feared. Unreliable, out of control, unfit for leadership. Ethan didn't smile, didn't laugh. He just nodded, as if the world had finally rebalanced itself. This wasn't petty. It was proportional. Dean had written the rules. Ethan just followed them, to the letter. By 3:00 p.m., Dean was trending at least on internal Slack channels. The phrase "Code Brown" had already become a meme in accounting. But upstairs it wasn't funny. 3 deals evaporated, $12 million gone, all because one man couldn't stay vertical through a 30-minute meeting. The board called an emergency session. Closed doors, red faces. By 5:00, Jake called again. They've placed Dean on administrative leave. Effective immediately. Ethan let the silence hang. Jake added, they're launching a full investigation, trying to figure out what went wrong. Food poisoning, Ethan asked neutral. Maybe. But the board wants more. They're reviewing his recent conduct, his health records, even asking staff if he showed signs of instability. Instability, Ethan repeated. Like it tasted right. Dean's fate was sealed not because he puked, but because the company couldn't afford a leader who cracked when pressure peaked. The irony, Dean once told Ethan reputation is built in years and destroyed in seconds. Now he was living it. Ethan didn't gloat, didn't brag. He didn't need to. Justice didn't need applause. It needed precision. Dean had built his identity on control, on perfection, on image. And now he was a cautionary tale, an executive with digestive issues, an investor meeting horror story, a case study in timing gone wrong. And all it took was one sandwich, and a man who knew exactly when to strike. 2 weeks later, Ethan got a call. Unknown number, calm voice, new tone. Mr. Ward, this is Maria Caldwell, Interim Executive Director at Midstate. We'd like to meet. Ethan didn't ask why. He already knew. The board had reviewed his record. Clients had vouched. Even vendors emailed asking why Ethan was no longer their point of contact. Tuesday morning, he walked back into the building he had exited with a cardboard box. This time, he carried nothing. No baggage, no apology. They offered him Dean's old position, procurement director, 20% raise, and a formal apology. We regret the decision made by prior leadership, Maria said, eyes steady. It does not reflect our values. Ethan accepted. Not out of pride, not even vindication, just clarity. He didn't take his old desk. He took Dean's office, same view, same chair, different rules. First policy he enacted protected sick leave. No exceptions, no judgment. Second anonymous feedback channel, used daily. The office felt different, lighter. People looked him in the eye, smiled when they passed. He wasn't feared. He was trusted. And trust, that's the one thing Dean never understood. The board asked if he wanted a press statement. He declined. Let results speak. He didn't need headlines. He had contracts. Within 2 months, Midstate had secured 2 new deals, including Great Lakes, the one Dean had lost mid-vomit. Ethan didn't celebrate. He just got to work, because real revenge isn't loud. It's quiet, professional, permanent. 6 months later, Midstate wasn't just functioning, it was thriving. Under Ethan's leadership, procurement ran smoother, vendor satisfaction soared, and internal surveys hit all-time highs. But it wasn't just numbers. It was how people felt. No more whispered fears about taking sick days. No more passive-aggressive policies designed to punish humanity. Instead, clarity, empathy, professionalism. Ethan didn't call it a revolution. He called it standards. He kept his door open, held one-on-ones every month, learned people's names, not just their KPIs. The office changed. So did the culture. When new hires asked what happened to the last director, people shrugged. Wrong priorities, they'd say. Didn't last. Ethan never spoke Dean's name. Didn't need to. His success didn't depend on dragging someone down. It stood on its own. And every morning when he stepped into that office, the one he wasn't supposed to ever enter again, he didn't feel vindicated. He felt responsible because revenge had already been served. Now it was time to build something better. Something that couldn't be undone by one bad week or one bad boss. Ethan wasn't just back. He was what came after. Dean never recovered. After the incident, he vanished from the industry circuit. No LinkedIn updates, no conference panels, no new titles. Word spread fast. It always does. The man who once mocked a sick employee had become the face of executive failure, vomiting mid-slide in front of investors. Recruiters remembered, clients remembered, Google remembered. Every interview began with the same question. What exactly happened during that Midstate presentation? Dean had no answer that didn't sound like an excuse. His resume gathered dust. His wife left, filed under irreconcilable humiliation. His brother-in-law, once his ticket in, cut all ties. Dean, he applied for smaller roles, project coordinator, vendor liaison. Most didn't respond. A few interviewed him. None called back. He took temp work eventually. Entry-level procurement at a logistics warehouse, fluorescent lights, plastic chairs, no windows. No one feared him anymore. No one cared. Every cough around the office made people glance his way, just in case. He'd built a career on the illusion of control and lost it all to a sandwich. No scandal, no conspiracy. Just a man who forgot that even kings bleed. Sometimes the most brutal justice isn't the courtroom kind. It's the kind that follows you. Lingers in job searches, echoes in networking mixers, sits silently in every rejection email. Dean wasn't destroyed by Ethan. He was destroyed by himself. Ethan had just set the timer, and walked away.